Frost's cold beverage. So cheers to everybody. 7:12, a little bit late, but well worth it. I'm going to show you the photo. Got some zing to her. So I'll show you the photo so we can talk intelligently about the motor when we're all starting off. So as you can see, radius entry stacks going into a front crank driven supercharger, roots blower, and you can kind of see the discharge tube coming off there, going into an intake manifold, into an, interestingly enough, an iron-headed small block Chevy. Very cool, period correct finned valve covers. I don't know if that might be an MSD mag on it too, because you know if you're going to go OG, you go OG, and then see the breather vents on the valve covers. Got a vent tube up here, like about 15 different levels of coolness on this thing. So I'll show people again later on, so you guys can take a look at it. But it is awesome. So this thing has so many cool things going for it. It is mechanically injected. It has these big giant stacks with the throttle blades feeding the supercharger. The supercharger mounted forward on the crank, not in the valley like normally. Has the discharge tubes going into the low profile manifold. I don't really know what car this is for. A lot of times this kind of thing is done for a streamliner or something so that they can get the kind of hood clearance they need. Sometimes they do it on a Lakester or Roadster or something. But the thing that's cool also about this is that, one, it's an old school small block Chevy. It's mechanically injected, blown. But it's also 183 cubic inches. It's the smallest small block Chevy that I've seen. So because I think that they're running this in the 3-liter class. So I don't have the specs in front of me. I told Nick from Clay Smith, these guys from Clay Smith were running this at WESTECH. And I told Nick that I wanted to do an interview with him so that we could talk about this particular motor and get all the specs on it. Because I'm a motor guy, so I kind of want to know all the stuff that's going on because I think it's really, really cool. Unfortunately, while they're running it, and this is not an uncommon thing with with mechanical injection, a bunch of fuel got in there, and I think it backfired and ended up cracking the blower housing. I think is what happened, if I remember right. But you know, I know if we were doing that, we would do it with a 3-liter, J series or something with turbos on it. But this particular deal has to run in a vintage class, so it has to be this kind of motor. This is super cool. I might look into some. I don't know what heads these are. I'm sure that they're a really, really small chamber. If they're not aluminum heads, I would look into some kind of aluminum head. But I'm just curious to know what the specs are. I'm curious to see what, I want to know about all the deets. I want to know what this is. And because I think that they're also running this thing at, I'm thinking that they're running at a fairly high engine speed. Man, need another drink. But I think they're running lots of RPM in this because it's a small displacement motor. So they're trying to make lots of power. So at any rate, when you look at this thing, you're like, I remember seeing it on the dyno. I'm like, oh, that's like way cool. And they're like, no, just wait. It gets, there's a whole bunch of different levels of coolness here that you're really not even seeing, even though I'm seeing enough. My question for you guys is, if you take a look at this, and I'll show you I can show you guys the photo again. So there's more people here now. So we can take a look. That's not doing anything for me there. So you can see. So pay particular attention to the stacks there feeding the supercharger down there, and the discharge tube going into the intake manifold. I think that's an MSD mag, like I talked about before, that has the typical dyno headers. It's got EGTs and stuff on it. So very, very cool. As we can see, the thing that I'm curious about, and I think that this will be our poll, is those stacks. So the stacks, do you think that the stack length feeding the supercharger, do you think that has any effect on power? Ooh, like right at 99 of 100. Does the stack length feeding the supercharger have any effect on power like long runners on an intake manifold? So let me know what you guys think. That will be our poll for today. But very, very cool. And I would kind of like to see, it'd be cool to test stuff like that. Like, is it doing anything? Is it just feeding the blower? Or are we getting some sort of extra feeding going on there? What's the deal? The thing that I would worry about more than anything is obviously making sure that that's enclosed and that we're getting a dedicated cold air source to it. If you could get a pressurized cold air source to it, especially with vehicle speed, because you have that at Bonneville, even better. But my salute to the ultimate small block Chevy, certainly one of my favorites that I've ever seen at WESTECH. It's cool to see weird stuff like cross ram stuff and mechanically injected, Hillborn stack. All of that stuff is very, very cool. But this one I think is my favorite one that I've seen at WESTECH, and the Charger is driven off of the crank. Yes. But the thing is, think about it. Let's say this is a 671-ish kind of blower on a 3-liter motor. And this is running, I'm sure that this is running E85 or straight methanol possibly too. I can't remember. And I don't remember asking that, but I'm sure it probably was probably methanol, I'm thinking. And so you'd be feeding a lot of fuel in there, but you would get, obviously lots of cooling. But this thing could also run lots and lots of boost on that displacement motor. So, very, very cool stuff. So let's see what you guys got going on. 1 Liter Mafia's in the house. Mike, Larry, Special Agent, Getaway, Todd's in the house. Yeah, mechanical injection sweeter. That's one thing I have very little experience with. I've seen Brule adjust things on some of the mechanically injected stuff. It's quite a bit of setup, and a lot of times you can't get. It's like with everything, you can't get everything, can't get all the things that you want out of it, but sometimes you can get some of the things. Camaro, it's 183 cubic inches, which is 3 liters, I think. Yeah, that's 3 liters. Chevy acute block levers. Nice. Java, come on back. Freno, is an LS Sniper style with intake as good as a stock style LS3 intake throttle body on an LQ9? There's no intake that's going to be as good as the factory LS3 intake. A Sniper style, a Sniper carb style, a carbureted intake, a single plane carbureted intake might make a little more power at the very, very top, but it's going to be down everywhere else. And you can see that result. Lucky for you that I have videos up that show the results of all of these different intake manifolds on an LS3, and you can kind of see exactly what they do. Thinking man, I don't know what the drive ratio is. I don't know if it's 1-to-1 or if they have a gear drive with offset gears on it that change the ratio. I'd have to ask them that. Well, at least it has enough rod ratio. You have to keep the bloggers happy, sure. Because that's where all the power comes from. We know that. And then if you dimple the pistons, dude, you're all set. I bet it helps air diffusion. Diffusion. Alcohol fuel and mechanical injection. A 4-inch bore. It's not a 4-inch bore. It's a small bore motor. Drag and Drive. You were listening to the interview that I did with Matt on Sloppy Mechanics today. That was a while back. Matt's good people though. Mechanical injection, only like wide open. Yeah. Sometimes you can get 2 of the things, but sometimes, a lot of times, not all 3 of them. You need a barometer to tune mechanical injection. Luckily, they had that at Bonneville. Does anyone make a 6100 small journal Chevy rod? 6 inches is pretty common. I don't know if I've ever looked for a 6100 rod. Can't wait to the mechanical fuel setup on my car. So figuring out the sump. You're running a mechanical fuel system on what car is that, Burns? Osman, any tricks to get more horsepower from the factory setup? If it's a turbocharged deal, obviously a programmer or something tune is going to raise the boost. Special agent, I don't know what size block it is. It could be an old 283, it could be a 265. I don't know. Is a 235 duration at 50 a lot of cam for a 327? It's not a lot of cam if you're trying to make power at the top of the rev range. And is it a small block Chevy 327? Matt Cooper was interviewed. Matt Happel was interviewed by Cooper Baghetti. Who is Cooper Baghetti? Should I know that person? 3 hours long. Yeah, the things tend to go long. I remember when I did the one with Uncle Tony, it was really long too. Larry. Might be time to set up a Patreon to fund some of your over expenditures. Exactly. Nick, his question though was not just a 6100 rod, which is I'm sure out there, but he wanted the did he want the narrow one, the Honda journal? Yeah, small journal. Unless he just wants a small Chevy journal, then that's not nearly as exciting. Oh, a small journal 327. Okay. That is I think it's a Cosmopolitan. Cooper used to be on the Cletus channel. Good guy. 2JZ Camaro and other fun projects. Cool. The Oz Man. Yeah, I should set up a Patreon. I set up like 50% of it when I first started the channel, and then just never finished it. Parts for it on the SRT4. I figure I'm running the M1. It could be better than the big pumps off the swirl pot, but I'm just waiting to get more numbers before I go for it. Are you having a problem with electric pumps or something supplying the power level that you need? I do really like, Charles was asking, was the Mystery Machine Cooper's. The Mystery Machine, I think, was awesome. I like that way better than I like the Ruby and those other cars. Sergeant, so you blocked off the grill, and you can also just slide cardboard from the radiator. Nick's Garage, John tested the long run 413. Very cool. Nick's Garage, I like Nick's Garage. I don't know him and I've never met him, but I like that stuff that he does there. I'm always up for meeting good people. Always up. Getaway. I'd like to meet. I keep meaning to go down there, and I told Alex that I would go by because I don't know if I've ever met Lucky in person. I want to go by and talk to Lucky, and if Alex is there, talk to her again. But also I want to go. I'd like to swing by and meet Rob Dom too. The stuff that he does is pretty cool, and I'd like to run a rotary on the engine dyno. Oh, Sergeant, there wasn't any room to do that. Did Nick do any tuning on the Sonic Ram deal? Is a Walboro 450 pump any good? Yes. Yeah, the K-Swap smart car is very cool. Jonathan, how much power do you want? Burns, what's the longevity of those mechanical pumps for driving around? Do they last for that kind of stuff? Do the drag week guys, do they run that stuff? 800 horsepower and E85 is still kind of within the range of the 80-pound Deca stuff. So those work really well. That's right, getting right up near the end. Somebody crashed that K-Swap smart car. Smart cars are cool. They just need to be they need to weigh about 500 pounds less. And then they need to have about 500 more horsepower. John, is the diameter more important than the length of what? Of the tubes that we're talking about? Have you seen McFlurry, the twin turbo Godzilla Fox with a Lenko 5-speed? I haven't. Nick did a timing sweep, temperature sweep, tried some metering rods and the carbs, but the guy who set the carbs had it dead on, and they went back with what they had set up. Cool. That's good that he had that set up right. Was the motor stock or something? Was it like a reproduction deal or a stock one? I'll have to watch. Turbo Centra. Lots of guys run the belt-driven mechanical pumps. Do hydraulic thumper cams make good power in a big block Chevy? They make lots of cammy sounds. I haven't done a lot of power testing versus other designs for those cams. I know that Chad was telling me that some of the drag week guys have problems with overheating their fuel during the driving portion of the stuff. It was original 413 board to 426. Did they put a cam and stuff in it? I mean, there's only so much you can do with runner length that's that long. I mean, it's like the original. It's the equivalent of a tune port carbureted motor, and even more so than the length of the tune port. But so you when you have that kind of runner length, you're going to make power in that RPM range. Reproduction cam. Okay, that's cool. The thing probably had a tune port-esque power curve, I would imagine. Ronald, I don't remember what the chamber size was on those aluminum heads. DUS, you have the thumper cam in your small block. The idle vacuum is going to be low. They designed those cams to be pretty cammy. People want the 3/4 race cam sound. Alex, what are you replacing are you replacing the stock rings with stock rings? If you're just replacing the stock rings with stock rings, I'll bet they're really close. Mad, I know you like 29 degrees. I don't like or dislike anything. I just, when we run it, that's where it makes peak power. So I go by the data. I don't go by a personal desire. For 91, we have 93 here. It doesn't matter. The combustion chamber wants a certain timing, and it's most effective at a certain timing. We've tried it on the 85. It still wants to run there. We've tried more timing. It doesn't seem to do anything. We've tried 100 octane with more timing. It doesn't seem to do anything. It kind of that's where the timing wants to be. Where you might be able to run more timing or it might be more beneficial is in the middle part of the curve where it doesn't have 29 degrees. There could be an issue with driving around, but with duals in the tank, I'd probably just pull the belt. Yeah, you could just run the smaller ones. Best I can find in my town is 91. My Silverado likes 87. It runs better than 87. It certainly runs cheaper on 87. That's right. The heart wants what the heart wants. I also made peak power at 29 degrees on a 6-liter if you want confirmation bias. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. I don't even care what the number is. The one thing I'll say is on a and we didn't really see this on the bigger chamber rec port heads, but the 317 head wants another degree or degree and a half of timing. Bullet did a hydraulic replacement cam that would equal the solid stock cam for Nix 413. Did that thing originally come with a solid flat tappet cam in that 413? That's interesting. A hydraulic would be a lot better choice because that thing's not gonna rev past 5,000. It's not gonna make any power past 5,000. Alex, if you're doing aftermarket pistons, you're definitely gonna have to have a rebalance. The rings I wouldn't worry about because the difference between the rings isn't going to be that dramatic, but the difference between the pistons could be a lot. What about colder air? Cold air, more timing. You can get the detonation threshold would change with cold air, but it's not going to change what the chamber wants. We have cold air in the dyno cell. Matt, I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. You know. Come on. Richard, was it a thing for people to swap 153 4-cylinder into Vegas and Astras because the 2300 was so bad? Like 75 Astras is in nice shape on Facebook, but as a Chevy 53 swapped in. I've never heard that. Any kind of Vegas swap that I ever saw was definitely a V8. Or a Cosworth. Mechanical injection pumps get hot if you're not running fuel through them. Electric pumps too, they like to be submerged. They tested an aluminum 4-barrel intake against the cross ram. Oh, cool. 4-barrel made more horsepower, which I would imagine the cross ram made more torque. $63 413. 4,800 was max RPM for power made. That's not surprising. I know when WESTECH did the one that they had that manifold on it was almost a 500-inch stroker version, and they kept lowering the load RPM start point to try to find the torque peak. And I think they got it down around 2,000 RPM. I have seen big block Vega swaps too. I even saw one that was a hatch. This is from a Hot Rod magazine way back. It was a hatchback Vega, and it was a big block, and it was a like an L72. It might have been an L88, but I'm thinking it was more like an L72, but an aluminum headed version, like the L89 heads on it, in the back of the Vega, which I thought was cool. Yeah, Eric, the crossruns would be very good for low speed because they have lots and lots. They're like at 3 feet or something of rudder length. They're the original Skyram. A kid in my town when I was growing up, when I was going to high school, had a V8 Vega because his parents had a speed shop, and it was pretty fast. I know it was faster than I used to ride around on my buddy's RD400, and I know the Vega was faster than the RD400 was. Alan, I think the Vega was back in the 80s. Back in the 80s. Back in the material world. So I do have this Buffalo nickel. Get that going for me. I don't have 2 of them to rub together, but I do have one. I think I saw it at a CarCraft show at Cal Expo. I remember seeing it as a feature car, I think, in one of the magazines. It might have been from that show. Working on a V8 Monza right now. Just a good wrench with an air gap. That's way too fast for the rest of the car. Travis? What transmission is in that? A North Star Vega swap. I think a Vega, in to make it like a Cosworth Vega, I think a quad 4 Vega would be good. Had a buddy with a 327 swap Vega, and his brother had a Vega hatch with a 396 big block. Fastest thing on our streets in the 80s was a small block Chevy swapped cam back Vega. Cool. I know. I like when CarCraft did their events. I remember going to a cruise night in a local town here and seeing a guy rev his motor up, and I don't know if he was trying to dump the clutch on or whatever, but the flywheel exploded and just about sawed through the side of the car. It was in a I think it was in an early Corvette, like a 56, I think, or 57. And you could kind of see part of the flywheel like sticking out the side of the car. It was a big explosion. Turbo 350 on the Monza with a 275 rear and a 229 gear. Yeah, got those freeway flyers. Stacked build velocity and stability. Just as bad as neutral drops. Neutral drops are only something that you're supposed to do in rental cars, right? Yeah, it was the flywheel, which is scary because, and you don't want to get hit by a zinging flywheel. I bought a van with a 4.8 gas, sounds like a diesel. Runs for 10 seconds, then goes off. Check gauges. Can the oil pump fix the problem? I don't know. Do you have any check engine lights or anything? What's going on with it? Does it have oil pressure? Does it have an oil pressure gauge? A 215 Buick. That used to be a good swap motor back in the day. Charles, a 3.8 Taurus, and your buddy had a quad 4 and something. Those were good motors, especially the 200 horsepower versions or the 195 horsepower versions. Yeah, the importance of a scatter shield, exactly. Yeah, J turns and neutral drops in rental cars, man. I remember rental car stuff was fun. Corvair swaps. Yep, I got beat in my 260Z with my fancy cam and Weber side drafts on it. I got worked over really hard by a V8 swapped Corvair. It wasn't even close. I wasn't even in the race. All I saw was like taillights and V8 dual exhaust on it. Safety wire kids, yeah. Has done Garlits about flywheel blowups. Would you build or turbo a slant 6? I have a slant 6 and I can put a turbo on it. I'm not going to run a lot of boost. In fact, I probably will put the slant 6 back together with some kind of little cam in it. I think it has the 340 springs in it now. So we'll put a little cam in it, and then I might put a turbo on it or a blower or something. And then I probably will sell that engine I need to get rid of a bunch of stuff in my storage. Yeah, nitrous kits on the rentals. Yeah. David, a 98 Lincoln with a 4-valve 4.6. Are you sure it was 300 horsepower in the Lincoln? That seems like Cobra territory for a 98, which would be the early motor, the B-headed one. But yeah, they're you can make power with those. It's a positive displacement pump. No stack will help. I'm kind of with you on that one. I'll take all your Honda stuff. I do still have some Honda stuff. Norm, you want the slant 6? It has a Super 6 air cleaner on it, although I don't think the motor was originally a Super 6. Somebody pointed out that at least the cylinder head is not a Super 6 head. I do have a Super 6 intake, though. Looking at the specs, it's an Intech motor, right? I didn't know that it was rated the same as the Cobra and the Lincoln. Also, usually the performance car they rated higher. Yeah, it wouldn't be the same. I thought that the Lincoln motor had a different longer runner intake manifold on it. After you build it up, I'm not going to build it up. It's going to have the stock short block. I don't have any 351 Windsor intakes. I might have an EFI one. I might have a trick flow, like the R series one, maybe. The NA Cobras didn't have forged internals either. Only the supercharged ones, right? My twin turbo 496 big block swap Vega, 2,600 pounds. Well, that should be good. First car was a 72 Barracuda with a slant 6. Had a solid lifter cam from the factory. People talking about Cobra motors, you need to be specific about the year. They made lots of Cobra motors, not just the 03 and 04 stuff with the superchargers, the Terminator motors that everybody talks about. Have you seen the announcement of the Dodge Demon? I did see that. I saw some stuff posted on social media about it. 1,000 horsepower, nice. What supercharger do they have on that? Can't be the same one as the Demon, right? Is it bigger? It runs 8. I'm sure it's got slicks on it, right? Does it have slicks and traction control or something? Just put the aluminum 5.3 in the Fox and the RB in the 240 and just made all kinds of room. The 5.3 I would like to put in the Fox, but the Fox now will probably get that V10. 170 proof, yeah. And the 5.3 I'll keep using as a test motor. Although it would be good to put the 5.3 in the Fox just so I could go to LS Fest with something. It has a 3-liter blower. Okay, I wondered if they stepped up in size. How's our poll doing? 51%. Wow, we're almost split. Does the stack length feeding the supercharger have any effect? And I spelled effect wrong. You guys didn't even point that out. Come on, guys. Like a long runner intake. For me, I don't think it will. The runner length is actually in the intake manifold. And all that stuff is just feeding the blower. But have you ever tried a 4.3 V6 with an M90 supercharger? I have not, but it would work because the 4.3 is essentially the same kind of power output as the NA 3800. So a blower on there would work just fine. I have run a turbo and a torque storm on there. Wikipedia says the 464 valve and the 93 Mark 8 made 280 horsepower. Save the 5.3 for the Silverado. Alan, you can run it on 151. Or I think that's about where we were when we ran the Moonshine, when I did this test with the guys back at Brian Tooley Racing. Because it wasn't 200 proof. Richard, do you know if it's possible to modify an Edelbrock carburetor to use as a blow through? I've never tried that, and I don't know which Edelbrock carburetor you're talking about. Jake, what was your question? Oh, the M90. I don't know how common it is. The M90 supercharger doesn't bolt on to the 4.3, so you'd have to have an intake made for it. So I don't know how common it would be. The blowers are readily available, but that's never the problem. The problem is making an intake manifold for it, because the intake manifold for the 3800 doesn't interchange with the 4.3. Thank you for the push rod length video. It really helped me. Good. See, even if I just did it for one guy, that's enough for me. What's the octane rating of 151? I don't know. It's getting up near pure alcohol. 151 I know is flammable. You need to try like Everclear. Diesel mechanic. All the other stuff is irrelevant except for the 105 millimeter turbo, and I don't know which one that is, but if the turbo will support 105 millimeter turbo, what will that support? 1,800 horsepower or 2,000 horsepower or something. So if the turbo will do that, that's what it could make with that turbo. All of the rest of the stuff is not relevant. I mean, it is kind of, but you have enough cylinder head, you have enough camshaft, you have enough intake manifold to do that. So if you think that the rest of the motor will take that, then you should go for it. Sorry, I should have mentioned which Edelbrock car, 1905 6V AVS 2. I've never tried it. So maybe you could enclose it in a box, but I've never tried to convert it to a blow through. I know a shot of Bacardi lemon in a Corona is delicious. It's just like squeezing a lemon in there, right? Except it's like a Corona, but with a purpose. Are you testing more testing with the 5.9 Magnum? Yep. Be cool to see a 5.2 versus the 5.9. The 360 will just make more power everywhere than the 318. Do you have brand loyalty? No. It's it's a leaded Corona. I know we used to drink, and you'll see some of this in some of the older videos, the happy hour and horsepower stuff. Mike's Hard Lemonade, but you'd put a shot of vodka in it because then it was lemonade with a purpose. I'm gonna downsize the turbo. I would recommend that. I mean, if you're looking for 1,000 horsepower, then put 1,000 horsepower turbo on it. Put an S480 or an 85 or something like that. Richard, I'm building Honda B18C1. Nice. T28 turbo. Turbo maxes out 350. Can I reach 350 on 91 octane? No, probably not. I would put a bigger than a T25 turbo on a B18C. I would put a T28 turbo will be kind of fun, but you won't be able to get all the power out of it. You don't have enough octane for that. And the closer that you get to maxing the turbo out, the more unhappy it will be, and the higher the charge temperature will be, and the higher the back pressure will be, especially, and the more susceptible to detonation it will be. Mike's Harder Lemonade, that's right. If I switch to 85, will I have more back pressure? Yes, because you'll make more power. So if you switch to 85, you should go to a bigger turbo. Go to a GT 3076. Kurt, thank you very much. If you ever run a Chrysler 273 Commando on the dyno, I haven't done a lot of Chrysler stuff. I've done the late model Hemis. I've done a 360. I tried to run the slant, but it was broke before I could put it up there. I've done an LA 360 and a Magnum 360. What's your opinion on NSR camshafts for an LS motor? They work fine. People like them because they don't have to buy springs. Although Brian Tooley from Brian Tooley Racing told me that most people don't buy that cam. They buy the cam that also requires them to buy springs because they're going to buy springs anyway. Because let's face it, on a junkyard motor that's 200,000 miles on it, it's time to buy springs. Throw some nitroglycerin pills in the tank, Burt Monroe, yeah. If Eric, that's right, at 440. I was trying to scroll through my memory banks and a T7, T8, just to be sure. T7, T8, whatever it takes. I just learned that the Chrysler and Plymouth Lasers are completely different cars. See, that's why we come here, man. Have you tuned a Holly Terminator for flex fuel? No. I've tuned them on 91 and I've tuned them on E85, but what I'm doing on the engine dyno is wide open throttle. Diesel mechanic. My dream car, I think, would be a McLaren F1, although mine would be modified. Because if I had McLaren F1 money, I would also have modified McLaren F1 money, and mine would have to have boost on it. Because what happens if what happens if the Bugatti wants to run on the big end? I mean, you're going to work them like, off the line, off the dig, but you gotta be able to follow through with that. An olive and a cocktail onion. Nah, I mean, this basically is I know that what's her face from Sex and the City kind of ruined it for like people, but it is basically it's a vodka martini basically, that actually tastes good. And I'm actually not a fan of olives, so onions I do like though. But I don't know if I would want one in my drink. I don't know if I'd want it to be dirtier with an onion. The ad said it'd be running different fuels. You're talking about the Chrysler deal? I'm sure it has a fuel sensor on it. Pump 93 for now. I want to ease her into it. It's a 370 Forged bottom end, 243 stage 2 LSD comp turbo cam and a T6 88 millimeter. That's a lot of turbo for 93. Twin turbo McLaren F1. I figured it'd be pretty easy to put turbos on that motor. An F1 GTR Le Mans, yeah, that would be good. You don't want a McLaren F1 in Le Mans trim because they had to detune it to run it at Le Mans. It was the first car. Now there may have been others since then that they actually had to detune to run at Le Mans from the street car. Should try a Phillips screwdriver. Nah, milk of magnesia doesn't sound that good to me. You can find the M70, M72 BMW V12 from the F1 very easily in yards. It's going to be hard to find the rest of the motor, though. Russians take a slug off the butchka, bite into an onion. I'd be okay with that. Would an S366 choke a 350? I'd like to see 600 horsepower. An S366 would support 600 horsepower. Do you like the Celine S7s? Yeah, a very good friend of mine, the guy that was the crew chief on my World Challenge car, was a crew chief for the Celine team when they went to Le Mans, which I'm totally jealous of him. Although he said they spent most of their time hanging out with the Corvette team because the Corvette team had an ice machine. They could make snow cones. Because the Corvette team was factory back then, they were most assuredly not. But yeah, it's kind of cool. But it's not anywhere. That's like to me, and I don't want to upset anybody that has a Celine S7 because they're fast and they're cool. But to me, compared to, that's not in the same league as a McLaren F1. I remember the first time seeing a Viper in person. The convertible versions with the side pipes and stuff. I remember looking underneath it. I'm thinking, this looks like a kit car. Speaking of high-end stuff, do you think there would be an aftermarket free valve? I don't think so. And not anything that would be available for the regular person. Are the junkyard walks going to be back this summer? Yes, and probably before the summer. That's a spring thing also. The McLaren F1 for a while was the fastest car in the world for quite a while, I think. Although the 241 that they were saying that car went, because everything else was quite a bit lower than that. And then they came out with that one deal that said it went 241, which seems like a lot, but mine would go that fast. and they drive like a kit car too. And I thought that the side pipe Vipers sounded awful, but I like the rear exhaust Viper GTSs, and I would like to have a Viper GTS too. Have you seen Rob Dumb's IndyCar? I haven't seen that. I've been watching 30 years for the code spherical rotary valve to be available. Billy Godbold explained to me in great detail about why that was just kind of a sham. But I remember seeing it for several years at the because my buddy Bernie and I would go walk over and kind of ooh and ah it and be thinking that would be kind of cool. We could change the shape of the cutouts in the rotary and change the port timing, and this would be kind of cool. And you don't have to worry about speed, and then we could radius the entry and all of this stuff. And but I don't think it's going to work. Couldn't believe how large the Viper was and how small the yeah it was. Yeah. Have you ever driven an SN95 with an independent rear suspension? Didn't the 03 Cobra have independent? Didn't it have IRS? Or are you talking about the previous generation? Small Chevy, so much fun. Just finished up a 388 stroker. Next will be a 302 small block. I'm ready for 110 degrees and dry. I like warm weather way more than I like cold weather. If I had Viper money, I'd do it and have SM build me a motor. Oh, Steve Morris. Oh, you want a drag race kind of thing? I would just want to maybe a stock one. Although I don't know, maybe 2 superchargers on or something. Then we're gonna see a walk around video of the Fox. I haven't walked around my Fox in I more than a decade. It's probably been several. I've seen you run a 351 Windsor up to 1,000 horsepower with the cast crank. How many horse will a 350 cast crank take? I'm pretty sure it would run there at least for a few runs. Avery, I don't think an 0304 Cobra with IRS handles dramatically better than a solid axle. In fact, I think on the Mustangs, the problem is not at the back of the car. I think it's in the front. Special agent, I don't know about those motors. So is the plug actually different from a leading and a trailing plug? And if they are, why would they be different? Serious question. What can you put in my LS3 swapped 03 Sierra daily driver truck? What do you mean? What can you put in it? Can you put people in it? Put a dog in the back? So special agent shot rocks all over Corvettes. 2 superchargers and a V10. You got 2 throttle bodies anyway. You might as well do something like that. Nick, we're still getting rain right now, and I'm about tired of it. I mean, we do need the water, but I think we're good. We could just get a little bit more next year. Then just have it keep going and be consistent. AJ, welcome. So you're doing up your 4.8 liter? Plenty of stuff. Just don't overcam it unless you want to rev it. If you're local to me, I'd be there tomorrow to help you with your Fox, pushing it to get it roadworthy. That would be a neat trick because my car's not here. It's in New Mexico. So I'd have to go out and get it first. My dog rides shotgun. Milo rides in the back. In fact, I made him a ramp so he could get in and out a lot better. Richard, raising boost gives me linear power gain. So like it goes up the same everywhere until I hit 7 PSI. Above 7 PSI, torque and horsepower decrease. So when you go above 7 PSI, what is happening? You're not getting the same gains in the whole range? You increase the turbo size and the same thing happens, but at 10 PSI. So are you running out of turbo? Because what will happen if you run out of turbo is normally you'll get gains down low where it will support where the turbo will support the boost level that you're asking it to support, but then boost will fall off. You could also do that by not having enough timing at the top. Does this sound like insufficient valve seat pressure seems related to back pressure? Yeah, I wonder why they're different. Order the rest of the Maximum Motorsport suspension for your car. Very cool. I was going to post up pictures of the double A-arm front suspension that I might do with Bart for the front of the Mustang. It's pretty fancy. Thinking of 550 lift, but coworkers keep telling me to change degree of 114 to 111. AJ, what are your... Don't ask me what my thoughts are. That's the wrong way to go about it. I'm going to scroll back and see if I can find your question. Don't worry about lobe separation angle. Don't go too big of a cam. And by too big of a cam, that's not lobe separation angle. Look at the duration at 50. That's the number that you need to be concerned with. And tell me how much power you want to make and what RPM you want to make it at. And then we'll get you fixed up. And the lift is 550 lift is fine. 600 lift is fine. All of that's fine. Seven PSI gets you 81 kilowatts and 9 PSI gets you 75 kilowatts. More boost gets you less power. So you have something going on. You have no timing or you have no air fuel or something because it shouldn't do that. That's not a turbo problem. If the boost is there, you have to look somewhere else. Are you getting misfire? Do you need to change the plug gap? What's the air fuel? What's the timing doing? Steve, this double A-arm suspension is by a guy. The guys at Paul Brown used to sell it, but the guy that designed it is Bart Works. Oh, 107. You guys that are telling them low separation angles are not helping things. So two things I want to do, two things on my bucket list. Probably should save these for the 24-hour, but we can talk about these when I do the 24-hour. Two things I want to do. I want to go to Tiger Beach and dive with tiger sharks and great hammerheads. There'll be other sharks there too, nurse sharks and lesser sharks, but the tiger sharks are the ones I want to dive with. And then I also want to go to Florida with some of the, and I want to go there for like a week or whatever, and just offer my services for free. And I want to work with the people that are trying to get rid of the Burmese pythons. I want to go out and I want to catch a Burmese python. I think that would be awesome. So those are on my list. I don't want to wrestle an alligator. It'd be cool to see him. And I'm not going to be swimming around with them, I don't think. But and I'm not afraid of reptiles, but I do respect them. But it'd be cool to see them. Special agent, way to go, man. You get your patch. Knock out a few other invasive species while you're at it. Yeah, they have problems with all kinds of stuff. Tegus and iguanas. I saw monitor lizards there too, which was kind of cool. Bucket list, Isle of Man and Le Mans. That's good. Not even gator nuggets on your plate. Oh, I saw the guys who were cooking up the snake. So I don't know that I would do that unless I was out in the wild and had to do it. But it's something I would try, obviously. Fuel or timing or cam timing. Gator tail. That sounds like a Florida cheerleader talk. My dream is to be able to sit in a McLaren. Always been my dream car. I do like those. It was very cool to sit in a when I was over with my buddy Bernie when he was working at Osco, they had a 962, so I got to sit in that. Those guys that are driving those cars were pretty badass. Gator jerky, yeah, that would be right up my alley. Louisiana talk, yeah, no, I get you. The one thing I do like from Louisiana is beignets from Cafe Du Monde. We have them here at Downtown Disney. It's not the same thing, but it's the same company. And we used to go over there just to get those because they are pretty awesome. Do they sort cuts of the gator? I think that they do. Crawfish. Yeah, that's just crawdads. We have those a lot. Yeah, beignets that's the goods. And I don't know if they still do it, but before, when they would give them to us, they would give them to you literally just in a bag of powdered sugar, which I thought, dude, this is just like a slice of heaven. I've had crawdads. We've had some from, oddly enough, which is maybe why it turned out why I did, from a local creek. And I mean, there were like 6-legged frogs in there and stuff. It was not a good idea. So go ahead and close out our poll at 51%, 52% about the tube effect. Don't know if it really has that. Bighorn sheep jerky. I like watching the videos of the big eagles knocking the sheep off the side of the mountain. Kind of a chump move, but it's better than grabbing onto them. And then they just go down and get them. I'm in New Orleans where you get the bag of sugar beignets. Yeah, those are good. The powdered sugar is awesome. But the thing you have to be careful with is, and I've had this happen a couple of times, and then I got to get going. Is it like you put they have the beignets in there, and then I'll like shake them up because you have to have even distribution of the powdered sugar. Otherwise, I mean, why bother? But then because you stirred the powdered sugar up, when you open the top and you breathe in the powdered sugar, not cool. Saw a hawk drop on a dove. Yeah, we see that. We see the hawks get snakes and all kinds of stuff. In fact, I was worried about the hawks when the puppies were little. I saw them outside kind of eyeing the puppies. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'd like to see you try that. You see what happens. I'll be on you like fire, mister. And on that note, it is time to go. I'll be back in the morning, though. Thank you guys all for showing up. You guys have a good night. Bow, bow, bow. I know the Eagles are no joke. They're not. That's really cool. Yeah, coyotes eat